Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Yang Ray. At the 6th plenum of the 18th CPC Central Committee in late October, Chinese top leader Xi Jinping was named as the core of the ruling party. And the CPC also vows to strengthen the inter-party supervision and inter-party democracy in the coming years. How will Chinese politics develop in the future? As the CPC aims to realize the two centenary goals, what are the challenges facing China's ruling party? To discuss these and other issues, I'm happy to be joined in the studio by Tao Jingzhou, managing partner of Deckard China Practice, and Anna Tangen, author and columnist. But first, let's have a look at this.
From October 24th to 27th, the Communist Party of China held its 6th plenum of the 18th Central Committee in Beijing. During the session, the party called on its members to closely unite around the CPC Central Committee, with Comrade Xi Jinping as the core. In President Xi's remarks at the session, he said supervision from outside the party is necessary, but fundamentally the Communist Party of China should strengthen its intra-party supervision. We need to accumulate the past experience, innovate the governance system, and strengthen supervision within the party with effective measures. Since the year 2013 to this September, a total of more than 1 million cases have been filed, and over 1 million people have been punished for disciplinary violations across the nation. This number has shown a clear increase year on year. To carry out stricter intra-party governance, 2 documents, the norms of political life within the party under the new situation, and a revision to an intra-party supervision regulation were approved. In addition to intra-party governance, other issues related with party building, such as democracy within the party, the relationship with the people, and the selection of officials, were also discussed.
Welcome to Dialogue, gentlemen. What does it mean to establish President Xi Jinping as the core of this generation of the communist leadership for you?
I think this they took what Deng Xiaoping has said, saying that in the party you need a group leadership, in the leadership you need a core, meaning that everybody else should such a kind of leadership.
That reminds me of what Lee Kuan Yew, founding father of Singapore, said. Most of the Chinese feel very comfortable with having a strong central government. Well, what does traditional culture of China actually say about having this powerful core of the leadership in present-day China?
Well, it's traditional. It's not just China, it's Beijing. There's if you even look at the symbols of your flag, it's the stars surrounding the central star, which is Beijing. The central government plays a very important part. Otherwise, you would have warlords. The whole country would fall apart into chaos if there is not some sort of centralized leadership. And I mean, when you talk about the core, it's fine to put it in these kind of older terms, but the fact is, China has been evolving over the years. The situation that occurred under Deng Xiaoping and the pragmatism which he approached it, period. But now China is entering into a very, very different kind of phase of its political, economic, and social existence. And I think you're seeing this kind of evolution of the leadership role models as they go forward.
Perhaps you are discussing the 5-star Chinese politics. If you look at the national flag, right?
Yes.
The 5 stars with the 4 surrounding the central one. Now, in terms of how to exercise good governance, what do you think of the Chinese course of development? Differs, of course, from most of the other developing countries. We have a very strong leadership. Instead of having democratic elections, having clashes between red shirt demonstrators and the yellow shirt in Thailand, and similarly in Arab Spring countries, we have a different chaos for the same reason, perhaps, with people taking to the street demanding more democracy. Yet in China, ever since 1989, powers have been concentrated in the hands of a few leaders, and they are powerful leaders to ensure law and order as well as efficiency of the economic development. This is a tough question, isn't it?
It's a very tough question indeed. Since the establishment of People's Republic of China, they try to have a very strong leadership because they know that in the past there are warlords all over the country, and without a strong leadership from the central, the country may well be, separated. So that's why they have such a kind of concern.
I agree, but you're founding a revolutionary society, right? It has no principles. It basically says that we have a duty to overthrow the Qing Empire and those people who were presenting a very different
Excuse
view.
me, I'm surprised you say we didn't have a principles prior to 1949.
No,
because Dr. Sun Yat-sen, this year we witnessed the 150th anniversary of Dr. Sun Yat-sen, or the idea of a government of the people, for the people, and by the people.
Yes.
These are the principles,
But if you
a
look
legacy
at
that can be compared to Abraham Lincoln.
And under Sun Yat-sen, who then stepped down, his vision was not put forward. The KMT was not able to capture the hearts and minds of the people. They were basically going back to the same kind of an ultra-warlordism that was being headed up by Chiang Kai-shek. Now, this might not be popular to say, but the fact is the communists came in with a very different ideology. And ideology from
Soviet
the West.
ideology, Stalinism,
I'm
sorry to say this, but the Americans would think so.
You cannot simplify it by saying it's a Soviet ideology. It came from Karl Marx. Last time I checked, he was not a Soviet
it's
citizen.
politics with Chinese characteristics.
Well, at that time, it wasn't Chinese characteristics. They were exploring something that was different, an alternative to the status quo, which was this a monarchy and then a republic. The republic did not find direction. You still had the kind of inequalities that were going on, and it was necessary to do this. So when you establish a revolutionary government, you have to be very strong. You have to set out a set of principles, you have to educate, and you have to push forward. And that's simply what they were doing. It cost China. It was not an easy transition.
Now, do you think the idea that the core should once again be introduced to the Standing Committee of the Politburo, the highest public office, the discourse by late senior leader Deng Xiaoping to have a collective leadership system may come to an end?
I don't think that the call will replace the collective leadership.
That sounds pretty philosophical.
Yeah, just in the sense that we still have this standing committee. Mm-hmm. They still have the vote and discussion. Only the leader as a call should have much maybe weight in the debate or discussion.
So, Politburo itself is the legacy of the Soviet Union.
I think that was very politically correct, but I think you have to look at it slightly differently. China has developed problems along with its prosperity. Can we agree on this? All right, corruption, all right, factionalism, right? A lot of these issues, and it now confronts new issues in terms of getting over this economic barrier, the middle income trap. We have a world where things under democracy and other forms of government are now going very well. China is in a position now where its markets dictate what happens in other markets. So it's not just China now going forward. So leadership, direction is very, very important. And in order to put the party in a situation where they can be legitimately leading, he's been tackling this corruption and factionalism. So yes, he is being declared a core leader, but at the same time, there's this balance when he started talking about inter-party democracy, about checks and supervision. So there's a check and balance kind of analogy that's going on, and I think that's important to mention.
Yeah, also, this meeting, whatever meeting, if they didn't amend the statute of Communist Party, we have to follow this chart, which is a fundamental principle set forth in that document, and internal democracy is one of the fundamental principles of the Communist Party. So nowhere in this meeting we said we are going to amend the statutes of the Communist Party.
Well, you guys have been talking about internal democracy. That's fun. That sounds smart. However, what I remember about the history of the Communist Party charter and what we did before, throughout most of the period since the founding in 1921, that we usher in broad democracy first and then concentration for the strong leadership. It's 民主集中制 in Chinese. Will this be somehow compromised?
No, this system should not be compromised as a principle. However, in practice, you always have a trend where we emphasize more on the democracy side, and some people they're more focused on centralization. So how to cut a balance between these two is really a delicate art of
It is an
leadership.
exercise of good governance for the inter-party democracy and to strengthen efficiency of the leadership. If you look at some of the problems that have occurred during the years between Jiang Zemin and Xi Jinping. I mean, Hu Jintao, he is said to have developed a system of sound distribution of powers, but then the powers were brought back and concentrated in the hands of one strong leader. Again, you cannot totally negate the virtues and integrity of a collective leadership, can you?
No, why would you? I mean, collective leadership is about the ability to transfer power.
He was talking about how to maintain the equilibrium between democracy and strong leadership, decisive say of one single person about the critical policy issues.
But when I think of the collectorship model that was ushered under by Deng, it was about peaceful transfer of power. How do you create an entity that is both planning your policy, implementing your strategy? It is the only political party. How do you make sure that within the party itself that there's a smooth transition? You need a collective body to do that. And these are the dangers that you have if you have somebody too strong emerging. But in China, it's very difficult to see what the future is because the circumstances keep changing. The kind of paradigm that China has introduced is nowhere else on earth. You were saying earlier, well, China isn't like every other democracy or emerging nation out there. It has been very, very successful. It continually, though, has to kind of look at the roots of its success and how it's going to extend that under its things. There's a lot of work to be done still, and there's a lot of more burdens on China.
Now, gentlemen, despite the falling of the Berlin Wall in 1991, a strong indicator of the end of the Cold War, with the growing momentum of globalization, we see rebound of anti-globalization protests outside the convention conferences of whatever multilateral trade
G7,
negotiations.
G20, yeah.
And this time around, populism, the voters to support Donald Trump, the newly elected president of the United States, delivered a powerful message. We would set up a war along the border with Mexico. So what do you think of the growing trend of anti-globalization, one way or another? We have done that in a Chinese way. In the United States, they have the Donald Trump doctrine, okay, to set up a war.
I don't know if they go as far as a
and
doctrine.
Latinos.
Right, yeah. I think certainly the Berlin Wall fell down is a new era for mankind. And after that, with globalization, China was a big beneficiary of such globalization. So now it seems like U.S. is retrenched to their domestic politics, and China try to be more global by opening this one Belt One Road policy, which is trying to make west side of China more
We try
global.
to be more inclusive.
Right.
And to usher in the idea of interconnectivity and co-prosperity. But don't forget the impact of Brexit, which is yet another strong indicator of regionalization, which is part of globalization.
I mean, they're going away from regionalization. China's going forward. I mean, you have parties who are voting selfishly and creating isolationist policies and ideas simply to cater to populist demands. Many people in the U.S. since 2008, 2009, their livelihoods have not improved. Real income has not gone up. Yet they read day after day about the scandals in major corporations, where they're fixing LIBOR or fixing the mileage on cars, whether it's pharmaceutical companies that are cheating people, whether they're increasing prices way beyond the cost just simply to put more money in their pockets. There doesn't seem to be a control in this. So many people in the West have reacted to this, and they spoke very clearly in the U.S. With Trump and in Britain with Brexit. They're saying that we're anti-intellectual, we're
Immigration.
Anti-elitist because it's elitists and these types of people who are ushering these pro-liberal
Elites,
things.
elite
Elites.
intellectuals in the United States are still recovering from the huge aftershocks in the presidential campaign. But you are watching dialogue with the Tao Jingzhou and the Tangen. Two major issues were raised at the recently concluded 6th plenum of the 18th National Congress of the CPC, the largest ruling party in the world. One is the establishment of core leadership with President Xi Jinping as the core. The other is how to fight corruption. When we come back, we'll address the issue of how to tackle the chronic issue the festering issue of corruption in China. Stay with us, please. Welcome back. Now, Mr. Tao, you have been in the forefront in addressing the issue of anti-corruption. This is the very issue that may compromise the leadership and integrity of our party. Mr. Xi Jinping, on the other hand, raised the issue in the hope of reinforcing party building to usher in silver lining in the darkest clouds. I'm sorry for using this phrase, but prior to Xi Jinping's taking the public office, general public in China were enveloped with the gloomy mood that corruption is likely to usher in the undoing, bring in the undoing of the party and even the country. They were pretty pessimistic. So what do you think of the current ongoing high-handed anti-graft campaign? Will it bring any hope?
This campaign is certainly a very good movement launched by Xi Jinping and the other leaders. And when you check the statistics, you will realize that it's really something which needed to be done for a long time.
Up to 95 generals fell disgracefully from power.
And how many also leaders in the different ministries, different provinces, is really astonishing. And also, this corruption issue is really jeopardize the legitimacy of the party. If you have all these people completely corrupted, how they can really be, civil servant of the country. So that's why I think anti-corruption campaign is a must. On the other hand, you should set up a system where you will not be able to. You will be, strictly controlled by organization, so that you prevent any future corruption. That is something more important than the crackdown of the existing corruption.
I'm going to disagree with you. I mean, in principle, it sounds great, but I defy you to give me one instance where any system, any government in the world has been able to prevent corruption. The only way you can prevent corruption is to recruit people who actually believe in the goals and purposes that goes forward.
Excuse me, Anna, 200 euros by a European leadership, European leader would end up throwing him behind the bars. But in China, I mean, that amount of corrupt money would be a lot higher. So when you say corruption exists universally across the world, it's true.
I'm just saying there's I'm saying that there is no system that can prevent corruption completely.
100%.
Okay.
No.
But if you're able to recruit, believe in the goals and methods of your particular system, all right, and believe in helping the people, that is the best guarantee against corruption.
No, you
not the system itself, good people.
You should set up a system not for good people.
Good people would be demonized in a bad system.
Right.
What do you think of this haunting specter?
Right.
It does exist constantly.
Well, I mean, quite frankly, if you go behind the statistics, the people who are being prosecuted, many of those, the vast majority, are being turned in by colleagues, not always for the most pure reasons. And this is an issue that has to be confronted within the party, because you cannot have the anti-corruption drive being used to settle personal scores or to clear the way for your own rise. I think this is much more of a challenge, and why Xi Jinping has said, look, he needs to take control of the party. He needs to make sure that the civilian rule and the party rule over the military is firm. You mentioned 95 generals. These were not generals at a low level. These were people at the highest echelons.
These 95 generals may only be the tip of a huge iceberg.
Well, whatever it is, it has to change. You cannot fire everybody. All right? No. And I think it was quite clear when Xi came in, he said,
what President Xi Jinping practiced after he took the highest office in China was portrayed as a kind of a shock therapy. But what Jingzhou is talking about is how to institutionalize a mechanism to prevent corruption, because absolute power corrupts absolutely.
But those things are already there. Every move you make, I write books about Chinese cities and how they operate. No one is in one supreme position of power. You have so many different committees and things that you're supposed to report to. The checks and balances are there. I'm saying that it really begins with the people. If your expectation is I join the company,
there. It's not already there. That's why Wang Qingshan said we should have a system where the officials would not dare to and cannot get corrupted. So now they dare to, and also they cannot easily get caught. So we have to have this system.
3 points actually that
right.
Mr. Xi Jinping and Mr. Wang, the issue of corruption. You cannot wish, you cannot dare, you cannot 不能不敢不想 right? You cannot wish, you cannot desire, you cannot you don't have the ability to do that.
So now I think the party is trying to set up this committee so that they can have a more strict control and supervision of the behavior of those officials so that they cannot get corrupted.
Here is, excuse me, gentlemen, when the fourth plenum of the 18th Congress was concluded, many people on the social media in China were talking about the critical issue of who is above the law, or whether legislature or judiciary should be independent, or should it be controlled by the party. Because currently the most effective organization in this country that has been able to carry out the anti-graft campaign is the Central Discipline Inspection Committee of the Communist Party of China. Hundreds of thousands of government officials have been put under house arrest and charged on corruption. What do you think of the execution by the CPC itself? Or should we encourage more autonomy, if not because independence is a very sensitive word, of the judiciary here? And what the capability of the media to exercise effective oversight? Because we've been talking about oversight and supervision of one kind or another.
Yeah, independence or autonomy, whatever you call, of the judiciary was in the constitution for a long time. The problem is you do not have an environment which will give such judge any liberty to be autonomous, because they are under the local budget, etc. So you have to have a system which can facilitate those kind of autonomy of the judiciaries, so that they can have effective supervision and controls of local officials. Otherwise, you cannot implement such a kind of constitutional principle of autonomy of judiciaries.
Exactly. In fact, he put his finger on a very important issue, that is the close relationship between the judiciary and the local government.
That has to stop.
Yeah, the judges are at the mercy of the local salaries and the payroll, so you cannot be independently doing whatever you want to maintain the integrity and clean judiciary.
Well, and the part of that also problem is that local governments are involved in business. So they have particular economic interests which might be opposed to other private interests, or they're trying to take land or things like that. So they're in a very difficult, because with the land leases, redevelopment of an area of land can become very, very sensitive. People have to be moved, they have to be compensated, and then there's the sale of the land itself. And these have opened up doors in the past, all right, to a lot of potential corruption. And I think that's well known.
Right.
But I don't agree with this idea that you can just simply, the judiciary will be oversight by the press, and this will all work out. We've seen numerous instances within China of the press being part of the problem and actually pay scandals where they said, they went to people and said, we have the bad stuff on you, now pay us money.
Yeah, of course. That's why you have this check and balance, so that media's
I still say good people
will be supervised by others. So you cannot say.
Yeah, we have
who's supervising the supervisors. At some point, how many layers do you want to have? The question I have about institutions like setting up independent bodies to go in, I think it's great to separate.
Gentlemen, before we conclude this very interesting discussion about the core leadership as well as the issue of corruption, let me ask you, what do you think should be the most reasonable relationship between the government and the market? Because if the government intervenes too much and obsessively with the market, refusing to let the market play a decisive role, then you're going to have the vested interests of the group, be it the government or whatever. So that will give rise and provide live ammunition to those who will get corrupt, right? Yeah. You have to separate the government from the market and encourage the government to. He waves his hand.
No, I'm sorry. Young Ray, you're talking like some Wall Street investment banker. The fact is, the market.
Come on, I'm paid, not as
you're not paid as
not like a banker. Not like a banker.
The market is not a sentient being. It is not a philosophy.
Yeah.
It is simply a description of how people interact when there's money and value involved. I really think that there is some merit to this idea of the visible hand of government and the invisible hand of the market. The invisible hand has to be controlled. We've seen this countless times. These large entities just running riot, doing anything they want, and then saying sorry with a little bit of money and going about their business. No one goes to jail, nothing bad happens. No, so the market itself is not the solution.
Yeah, I think the government should maintain a fair environment for the market, and they should abolish all these kind of market access barriers to get into the market. So they should punish the bad player of the market, and that's the relationship between the market of the government. As Premier Li Keqiang said, we should take away the government's hand from companies' pocket because it's not their business.
I'm sorry, time is running out. I'll bring you back for a profound discussion. Until then, goodbye.